Tonight,
investigators have determined that Damien Sanderson was a victim of homicide by Myles Sanderson.
In an update on the investigation, RCMP now say Myles Sanderson killed 11 people in the mass stabbing on James Smith Cree Nation and in Weldon, including his brother Damien. Also, a dress designer inspired to help after that tragedy is donating hundreds of hours of work to create grad dresses and fancy suits for high school students on James Smith Cree Nation. Plus, the latest fallout around the leadership of Hockey Canada.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Thursday, October 6th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening, and thank you for watching. One of the two brothers accused in one of Canada's worst stabbing massacres turned out to be a homicide victim himself. But it doesn't mean he's innocent in the stabbings that started in James Smith Cree Nation last month. Sam Sampson has the latest.
RCMP say one Sanderson brother killed the other.
Investigators have determined that Damien Sanderson was a victim of homicide by Myles Sanderson. Myles Sanderson committed all of the homicides alone. This brings the total number of people who were killed by Myles Sanderson on September 4th, 2022 to 11.
Initially, RCMP believed Damien helped in the attacks that led to 10 people dead and 18 others injured. They even charged him with first-degree and attempted murder. Damien's body was found a day after the stabbings. Police won't say when he was killed, just that he didn't commit the actual homicides. But he was involved, they believe, in the planning.
Evidence collected and analyzed by investigators to date have determined Damien was involved in the initial planning and preparation for the attacks on September 4th. We are still investigating the extent of Damien's involvement.
RCMP add they were in James Smith Cree Nation the day before the stabbings. Someone called 911 saying Damien had stolen their vehicle. On their way to the call, officers realized Damien had an arrest warrant for a previous assault. They also saw this photo of him from 2014. With the help of the 911 caller, they eventually found the car in front of a home in James Smith. They were let into the home where they found 7 people. RCMP say the officers asked the men to identify themselves. At the time, none of them said they were Damien. It wasn't until later that RCMP found out Damien was in that crowd and had given a different name.
Just because one of those people may have a warrant for arrest, it doesn't give us sufficient grounds to request photo ID from everyone in that location. So we need reasonable grounds to be able to do that. We can't work on mere suspicion alone.
RCMP say they now know Myles and Damien were selling drugs in James Smith. They were also involved in 3 violent incidents, none of which were reported to police. Assistant Commissioner Rhonda Blackmore says that they're sharing this information now to help the families with the grieving process and to be transparent. She says there's no way they could have known the violence that would have unfolded the next day.
We had no indication that there had been violence committed. The assaults that had occurred were not reported to police prior to the mass casualty events that occurred on the 4th of September, and we had no reason to believe that they were going to commit those events. We had no information or intelligence leading us to believe that. So that would be pure speculation that there could have been a change to the outcome.
There are a lot of questions RCMP say they can't answer right now. The Mounties are still under investigation since Myles Sanderson died in police custody, and there's a coroner service public inquest scheduled for next year. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Regina.
Hockey Canada lost more sponsors today. Canadian Tire has officially ended its partnership with the body governing hockey in Canada. As well, TELUS and Imperial Oil said today they will no longer fund the men's program this coming season. It stems from the organization's handling of sexual assault allegations. The Liberal government says it's time for change.
Hockey Canada has completely lost the confidence of Canadians. There needs to be wholesale change. They need to do it. They need to realize that if we have to create an organization, get rid of Hockey Canada and create an organization called Canada Hockey instead, people will look at doing that.
Hockey Canada has been under pressure since the spring. That's when news broke that it quietly settled a lawsuit with a woman who alleged she was sexually assaulted by 8 players on the World Junior team. Admissions followed of other settlements and how Hockey Canada drew on minor hockey membership fees to pay for them. Tim Hortons and Scotiabank are also among other sponsors that pulled funding. Earlier this week, a Hockey Canada official defended the organization, suggesting critics are scapegoating, quote, hockey as a centerpiece for toxic culture. Now, Hockey Saskatchewan has declined to comment, but some former junior hockey players are also speaking out. Joseph Strong played in Quebec and now lives in Saskatoon. He says he's been privy to rumors of similar inappropriate behavior. He hopes more provincial hockey organizations follow Quebec's lead and cut ties with Hockey Canada.
Whilst I was playing in the league, I have heard of situations where people have been taken advantage of, or just, where a lack of judgment was had been made, and I think it is really important that should be heard. You hear some stories, but there's a lot more stories out there that haven't been heard. So yes.
Rochelle Dubois wants answers. Instead, the Saskatoon mother has pain. It's been more than a year since her 9-year-old daughter died. Bailey Maurice was hit by a truck, and Taylor Ashley Kennedy is charged with driving while impaired on cannabis and causing the death of Maurice. The accident happened here on 33rd Street. Maurice was pushing her scooter across the busy street, and since then, her family has come to court for Kennedy's appearances. Outside court today, Dubois spoke of her heartbreaking loss and the city's drivers.
I think that drivers need to be more aware of their surroundings. And I'm just tired of seeing Saskatoon drivers drive around with privilege. It's not fair.
Kennedy is to return to court at the end of November, and that is when she's expected to enter a plea. The province has released the results of a rare inquiry into a police force in southern Saskatchewan. The death of a constable with the Estevan Police Service nearly tore apart the force in 2021. As Alexander Kwan explains, change is coming, but there's still more work to do.
Very positive progress is being made in the community of Estevan.
Things have changed. That's the message from provincial officials about the Estevan Police Service. Just last year, the organization was so dysfunctional and toxic that the province was forced to launch a rare inquiry into the service's workplace culture. What investigator Aaron Fox found was a department with an unprofessional culture, resulting in a breakdown in the relationship between the community and police. The inquiry was launched last year after the death of Constable Jay Pearson. Although he died of natural causes, members of the Estevan Police Service believed his death was the result of a lengthy fight to get workers' compensation for his PTSD. That helped to create fear among officers that mental illness would not be treated seriously.
It wasn't too far of a stretch to conclude that likely was impacting on the quality of the police service that was being provided.
Things got so bad that the chief of police at the time chose to resign. But the inquiry brought some of the biggest issues to light. Fox says a lack of communication inside the force caused frustration for frontline officers. He also found that the Board of Police Commissioners, tasked with oversight of the police force, did not have a clear understanding of its responsibilities.
Police boards struggle with training and getting up to speed on managing these complex organizations. And there needs to be ongoing work all the time. So this is not an Estevan issue necessarily.
The inquiry has resulted in changes. Estevan police are now working to ensure that officers have access to consistent, accessible, and anonymous mental health services, while the Board of Police Commissioners has undergone training and now serve 2-year terms rather than just 1. The province says it will conduct an audit next year to ensure that things continue to improve. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
A year ago this week, a homeless tent encampment called Camp Hope began to take form in Regina's Pepsi Park. Regina residents banded together to donate tents, warm clothing, and food to the people living there over winter. 1 year later, many people are still struggling to find shelter. Laura Sharpoletti has that story.
Temperatures are dropping in Regina, and people who are homeless are all too aware that life on the streets is about to get a lot more difficult.
I have an appointment I didn't even go to because I was too worried about this, my the people here. So I didn't go for my appointment, and I just concerned. It's hard to live on the street.
Randy lives at this encampment. He watches over a small group of people living here, trying to keep them safe. Randy says his current living situation is worse than it was at Camp Hope, which was heated and brought in many community donations. Last year, camp organizers told us the homelessness situation was made worse by the government transitioning to the Saskatchewan Income Support, or SIS, program. Anti-poverty advocates argued that the financial support was not enough for someone to live on. And landlords were not paid directly under the SIS program, so evictions went up.
It was a perfect storm. We had changes in social services that were negatively impacting people. We had the opioid epidemic crisis, which last year was a record-breaking year. This year is on pace to be yet another record-breaking year.
At its peak, Camp Hope had about 70 tents and about 100 residents. Then, in November 2021, the city of Regina moved some of the camp's residents into an indoor 40-bed emergency shelter. But it wasn't big enough for everyone, and we're told 1 in 5 of those left behind have now died. But there is a plan to help. Regina has a rapid housing initiative in the works, a 29-unit supportive housing development. However, supply chain issues have delayed that project significantly, and we're now told it will not be ready until next August.
It is so disappointing that we are in the position of basically being a year behind in occupancy of this building. However, you fight those battles and you address those challenges that are within your power.
The rule is if you need space to stay overnight, social services will find you space to stay overnight, so nobody needs to sleep outdoors. They don't need to sleep in tents. There are interim accommodations. We do have 24 permanent supportive housing units that were created out of the 40 that were temporary in the shelter. And so that is 24 more than we started this time last year with.
A group called Rally Around Homelessness has gotten the city to declare October 8th, this Saturday, Giving Day in Regina. People are encouraged to visit Pepsi Park and donate thermals, mitts, food, everything that was needed last year at the tent encampment except for tents.
We don't want to see people walking around trying to use socks for gloves this winter. That's always really heartbreaking. You know, we want to make sure that people have thermal wear and that they're warm while we wait on these bigger solutions to come, right? They're not going to be here this winter, and that's the saddest part. So we're just trying to do what we can to make sure that we can bring as much comfort and warmth as possible.
The city says if another large-scale encampment pops up, it will be torn down. Laura Sharpaletti, CBC News, Regina.
It's a game that could decide the final playoff spot in the CFL. The Riders are in Hamilton to face the Tiger Cats tomorrow night. The 3 Western spots have already been claimed, leaving a crossover to the East as the Riders' only option. Saskatchewan currently holds the 3rd seed in the East. However, Hamilton 4 points back in 4th, has a much easier schedule with a game in hand and could catch up. Riders head coach Craig Dickinson said he made it quite clear what's at stake.
What overrides everything with me is just being real with people, and I'm being real with them. We got to win this ball game if we want to get to where we need to go, and that means playoffs and et cetera. So, like I said, it doesn't mean we're done if we can't pull it off, but we got all our eggs in this basket. We're going to throw everything we can at this game.
It's definitely keep me awake important. I mean, I've been waking up at 3 a.m. every night this week, so it's been a struggle trying to sleep. You know, trying to remain focused on what's going on, making sure you're getting enough film in, making sure you're taking care of your body good enough to prepare for this game. We know this game is big for us just as much as it's big for them, so we know what's at stake.
And we're not going to save a play. We're not going to save a decision in terms of dressing a guy maybe and hoping we can use him later. We're going to try to put our best 45 out there no matter what, and we're going to call every play, every trick, I should say, that we have if we need to, and we're going to throw everything we have at Hamilton. We know they're going to do the same to us because it's a must-win game for them. It's a must-win game for us. So it should be an exciting evening.
Veteran Charleston Hughes has been left off the roster for the game against the Ticats. He'll be replaced by newcomer Cody Roscoe. Following the Hamilton game, the Riders will head into another bye week, followed by back-to-back series with Calgary to end the regular season. A big financial boost for the team that helps patients in Saskatchewan at their most critical moments. Today, Sask Power, SGI, SaskTel, Sask Energy, and the Crown Investment Corporation announced $10 million in combined renewed funding to support STARS. The air ambulance service is celebrating 10 years in the province. Since 2012, it's flown more than 9,000 missions to more than 500 locations across the province. We'll be back after the break.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital GMC Buick Cadillac. 22 model clear out is on now.
Welcome back. CBC weather specialist Ethan Williams joins me now, and as promised, I had to scrape this morning.
Yeah, well, just gets us prepared, I guess, for what's to come, Sam. There's a lot more of that ahead, and including tonight, I think will be another one of those nights where you'll want to keep the scraper handy. It's been a cool day across the province, our coldest temperatures, especially in south and central Saskatchewan, since the May long weekend. We've been sitting in single-digit territory, except for the southwest. As usual, they're basking in the nice mid-teens degree weather today. But again, a sharp gradient across the province, only 4 degrees along southeastern and east central parts of the province. We're sitting at 5 in Regina, 8 in Saskatoon, just under the 10-degree mark. High pressure along that eastern side of the province. That's what's keeping temperatures cool in that region. But really, most of us enjoying a very nice sunny day, light winds today, and it'll continue to be that way through the overnight hours tonight, I think, aside from a little gusty conditions in the far north. And tomorrow afternoon, really a lot of the same in terms of that nice sunshine, but temperatures going to rebound. Will be at or just above seasonal for this time of year. And really, as we head through the holiday weekend, we are seeing favorable conditions, temperatures well above normal in some portions of the province. High pressure moves in again on Sunday, and that will provide some more clear skies. Now again, the far north tonight, maybe a little bit of gusty conditions prior to midnight, and then those will die off overnight. Tomorrow we are looking at that wind gusting in the south between about 30-35 kilometers an hour. Breezy again a little bit on Saturday, but again, nothing too out of the ordinary. Now tonight, with a little bit of wind in southern Saskatchewan, where those temperatures have been cold along basically the eastern half of south and central, wind chills getting quite cool, close to -10 in Yorkton, even down to around -5 in Regina. And conditions tomorrow morning around 7 a.m., you can see that real sharp drop off, even just between Moose Jaw and Regina. That's a 5-degree difference there. A lot of us waking up to around -5, a little bit cooler than that a little earlier in the morning. In the far north tonight, keep in mind that there is the possibility of some fog as we head through the overnight hours, but that should quickly burn off through the morning. Now, all this dry weather helping to get the crop harvested, about 90% now harvested. The 5-year average is around 82%. We were at that about last week. And it's getting so dry now that southeastern and east central regions that have been wet really since the spring are now starting to get dry as well. But of course, unfortunately, just a little too late for you folks to get any yield there. And it has been so dry that we are still seeing that fire risk in some portions of the province, really the southern half under a high risk, extreme in west central. Keep in mind that there are still fire bans in place depending on which RM you're in, even this late into the year. Now, Regina, we will continue to see those dry conditions. And again, the warm up is quick here. Tomorrow, 16 degrees under sunny conditions, and the Thanksgiving long weekend actually looking quite ideal. Saskatoon, normal for this time of year, 13. Will be well above that over these next few days here. But then notice a cool down and the winds whipping up. So as we get more into fall, Sam, yes, the hot and cold air masses start to fight with each other, and that will pick up just a little bit.
We start the roller coaster, which is fine as long as the snow, just gives us a bit of a break.
It can take its time.
It can take its time for sure. Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
Stay with us. We'll be back after the break. A Regina dress designer says she was inspired to help after hearing about the tragic mass stabbings at the James Smith Cree Nation last month. Julie Paul designs formal gowns with exquisite beadwork detailing. She's donating hundreds of hours of work to create grad dresses and fancy suits for high school students living on the reserve. Videographer Richard Ajkute caught up with her to learn more.
My name is Julie Paul. I'm a fashion designer. This is my home studio in Regina where I do all my designing and sewing. I have a personal connection there with Chief Wally Burns. He's a customer, previous customer with Regalia and men's suits. Actually, my very first contact with the grads is one of them actually had mentioned that she saw the feathers and she wanted the pictures of people that motivated her to finish to graduate, and so she started naming the names, and I realized that they were some of the people who passed away at James Smith that she mentioned. It was September 4th, 2022, and I was like, oh my gosh, and she had mentioned one of them was Bonnie, and mentioned how she's related to all of them, and it just kind of hit me. I realized how emotional this is going to be for me, and to try to make it as meaningful as I can for them so that they can heal and they can just have good memories going forward. I'm actually self-taught. I never knew how to sew, but I actually was always creative and always looking at ways to make things. I actually started with Regalia, so I applied all what I learned to the dresses and stuff. So just taking apart dresses and just redoing them with my own style, my own version. For one dress, it would probably take at least a week. Always give myself at least another week, and so 2 weeks for the guys, because I'm going to do the men's suits, and it's probably going to take at least 3 weeks for that. So it's about total 35 weeks so far, and I'm definitely going to have to hire some new employees for this. So my contribution to the James Smith grads for 2023 is close to $60,000. Just hearing their excitement just really just made me feel better, and I know it's going to be good for the world or society to see how these young people are, they're persevering through their trauma, and not to forget, but also to just know that life has to go on in a strong way, and even though they have suffered such a great loss, that they can still reach their goals and have good memories of it as well.
And Ethan is back with one last look at tonight's weather.
And scraper weather again, Sam, and mitten weather too, probably tomorrow morning, -2, but feeling like -7 at 8 a.m. High pressure keeping us under some sunny skies, and those will stick around as we get to the noon hour. 11 degrees under sunny skies in Regina. Southwest winds gusting up close to 30 kilometers an hour. Saskatoon, you won't miss out on the sun either. Your wind chill won't quite be as bad tomorrow at 8 a.m., and you will very quickly warm up through the morning hours. It will be at 13 by the noon hour, heading to the mid-teens by the time we get through the middle of the afternoon. Now, we love your sunset pictures, but how about a sunrise photo? This one from Brad and Pam Howe out near Humboldt Lake. That is just south of Humboldt. Some beautiful trees, the lake there, and very soon, Sam, that lake going to be frozen over. You're welcome.
Thanks for that dose of reality, Ethan.
Anytime.
And that is it for us tonight. For News Anytime, you can always head to our website or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube page. Glenn Reed will be back with more tonight at 11. Ethan will have more weather then as well. Thank you for watching, and have a great night.